the invocation by the Reverend Greg Ott. If he would come forward with the invocation. If everyone would stand for the invocation and remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend, we're glad to have you here.
Would you pray with me? Amazing God, creator of the universe and earth, we thank you for this beautiful day. Your gifts of goodness go beyond our acceptance, and when we experience bad days, we come to ask you why. This evening, O God, we ask for your amazing grace. Help us look beyond what separates us and hold on to what brings us together. Encourage us, God, to put aside divisive differences and empower us to work together as one body for this city, this state, and this nation we call the United States of America. On this day, October 18, 2016, look upon the City Council and your people and claim that what you see and what you hear is good. May our work reflect your goodness for all people. I offer this prayer on behalf of the God we claim. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend, thank you very much for coming down. You have the roll call. Do I have a motion for the well, there was no certification of a closed session. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes of October 4th, 2016?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll call for the question, please.
Your Honor, may I state that Mr. Moss is in Pearl Harbor on his...
Yes, ma'am, please. Thank you. He is on Navy business, and we wish him safe travels. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to read some proclamations. And if I could ask Jim Burr, President of the Friends of the Virginia Beach Public Library, to come forward. This is Jill. I am really losing it. I apologize. Jill, we're so glad to have you here. It's my pleasure to read this proclamation. Whereas the Friends of Virginia Beach Public Library is an all-voluntary, nonprofit organization dedicated to raising money for library services, sponsoring programs for all ages, fostering community support for the library, and encouraging literacy by making free reading materials available and offering inexpensive materials at book sales. And whereas our friends' longtime support of the Virginia Beach Public Library is an example of the vital role volunteers play in our community, and whereas our friends' dedication is a demonstration of their commitment to the library and its mission to be the community's library for a lifetime, providing boundless opportunities to read, learn, meet, and discover. Whereas our Friends Group is a highly successful organization that, through extensive volunteer time and effort, has provided over $1 million to the Virginia Beach Public Library over the past decade. And whereas our friends in recent years have funded adult and children's materials, early literacy, interactive displays, summer reading programs, our first adult music concert, and other special events, furnishings, and new technology in the library facilities, and much more. And whereas many improvements and enhancements in our library have been possible because of the support provided by our friends, and whereas we are joining libraries across the nation in celebrating their strongest and most dedicated supporters, their friends organizations. Now, therefore, I, William D. Sessoms, Jr., Mayor of the City of Virginia Beach, Virginia, do hereby proclaim October 18th through 22nd, 2016, Friends of the Virginia Beach Public Library Week in Virginia Beach, and call upon all citizens of Virginia Beach to recognize the vital work of these friends. Jill, may I present this to you? And thank you for all that you do. Please, please.
On behalf of the Friends past and present, thank you for this recognition of the Virginia Beach Friends of the Public Library, Friends of the Virginia Beach Public Library. This is a milestone year for us. 2016 is our 40th anniversary. So it was in 1976 that the current organization was chartered. Marcy Sims was in her first year as the library director at that time.
Wow.
And former Councilwoman Reba McClannon was our first president. So the society, the Friends of Virginia Beach Public Library is still in good hands, and we look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it. Father Jim Park, if you could come forward, please. And it's my pleasure to read this proclamation. Whereas the City of Virginia Beach is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. Whereas Virginia Beach is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Virginia Beach is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Virginia Beach acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 550 extra mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2016. Now, therefore, I, William D. Sussman, Jr., Mayor of the City of Virginia Beach, Virginia, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2016, Extra Mile Day in Virginia Beach, and I urge each individual in the community to take time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, but to also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, or world a better place. Jim, may I present this to you, sir?
Thank you. Mayor, City Council, we certainly are honored to have a city in which so many people go that extra mile. And walking in the footsteps certainly of Mary Russo, and continue to be a community that invites people to be truly engaged. And when they do that, the city becomes alive. So we're grateful for all the volunteers throughout this year. Over 16,000 people have volunteered throughout the city. And that doesn't count the school people that volunteer in so many ways, or civic organizations. So many of those people. So there's so many people in different ways. Mayor, I'd like also to say, in terms of a city that is facing emergency, trying to move from recovery to rebuild, Dave, we need more volunteers. So if you're willing to raise your hand and work with Operation Blessing or something, go online, we need you. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you for making that ask, too. Thank you. Now I have the pleasure of awarding the scholarships from the Sister Cities Association of Virginia Beach. And if I could ask Mindy Morano to come forward, also Kamal Kamdar to come forward, and Cameron Grove to come forward. Please.
I don't believe Cameron and Camel are here.
Okay, and you're Mindy, correct? Yes, sir. Okay, Mindy is the winner of the Sister Cities of Virginia Beach Youth Ambassador Award. Mindy is a student in the Princess Anne High School Baccalaureate program. Her platform was concern for the deaf and disabled community. She dances with the School of Creative and Performing Arts. She is interested in calligraphy and painting. And Mindy, it's my pleasure to present you with this plaque, if I may. And the city seal, and most importantly, a pen. Congratulations. Is Kamal here?
No, Camel and
Or
Cameron,
Cam?
neither one are here.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here and congratulations. Thank you.
We do
Would you like
have
to
Can
say
you
something?
show us your trophy that you got that night?
We do have several of our board members here, Your Honor.
Please.
Would you all stand just to show that you're here?
Will the Sister Cities Board please stand? We welcome each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. Now look at that. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. We also have a lot of Boy Scouts here today. If I could ask them to stand and be recognized, if they'll just stand. Jacob Britton, Nick Lundgren, Liam Malone, Jack Sommerdyke, Jack Brettern, Will Wargo, Anish Desai, Anthony Azzarello, Noah Carlson, Sam Howard, Kyler Bennett, Alex Etter, Thomas Etter, Will Faircloth, Ian McCulkey, Tony Seminario, Isaiah Simmons, Dylan Streeper, Christian Tomasello, Tim Nichols, and most importantly, let's also recognize the leaders, Larry Britton and Matthew Lundgren. We're glad to have you all here. Council, we're going to have some add-ons to the consent agenda, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add on to the agenda under ordinances and resolutions, which is requested by all of the members of the City Council, an ordinance to transfer $1,100,000 and to appropriate $7,695,750 from fund balance for expenditures related to the Hurricane Matthew. The second ordinance is an ordinance to authorize the city manager to donate excess personal property and up to $300,000 for emergency relief to residents. And the third ordinance is an ordinance to add Section 8-38 of the City Code Building and Building Regulations by allowing the waiver of permit fees for certain emergencies. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Call for the question, please.
By a vote of 10-0 with Mr. Moss being absent, you have added the ordinances to the consent agenda.
Council, basically, everything is on consent except for planning item number 1. That will be pulled, but we do have a few speakers, and so before we vote on the consent agenda, we wanted to hear these comments. Barbara Mesner, would you come forward and address the issues you had, please?
All of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm the only speaker?
We got one other speaker.
On which item?
Well-
Which item? I'm on
Well, Metro
Q1.
Fiber Networks.
Okay, that, item 1, okay. This is good evening. This is a non-exclusive city franchise for telecom services. I think they're gonna have to dig underground. We already have a major problem with, leaky sewer pipes, leaky water pipes, flooding. And to add another contractor on top of Cox Cable, I assume we're gonna still keep Cox Cable. I just think that's a huge expense, and I'm asking if we're gonna have franchise for both of them that we're paying for, both Cox and Metro Fiber Network, or if there's gonna be 2.
We're just listening to you tonight.
Okay, that's my question. I think it's a huge expense. Thank you.
You also had amend budget for merit pay raise for constitutional officers and employees.
Right, okay, thank you. Yes, this is a 1% merit pay increase for constitutional officers. I think they're the highest paid officers, and that's without state funding. So you're reaching into the budget that was approved in February for increasing salaries, merit salaries, and I just think that's an unnecessary removal of money from the budget that was approved.
Thank you. Ordinance number 9, transfer $10,000 to Virginia Beach CCO, clean vessel grant $40,000 from Department of Health to stormwater quality enhancements.
Okay, was it the one VBCCO is C, so that one's first, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. VBCCO is the Council of Civic Organizations under the city umbrella. And, for years, they've refused to inform us, everyone, and put the candidate forums and everything up there. They canceled the candidate forum they had on September 19th. They didn't reschedule it. And I just think giving them $10,000, they keep their money in town bank, is a bit much for their, for an event that they're having. I'm just trying to be fiscally responsible because I don't think everyone on council is, okay?
The clean vessel grant $40,000 from Department of Health.
Okay, Department of Health. You're taking it from Department of Health after you have massive sewage spills on Laskin Road. Even with the windows down, the sewage there is horrible. And Mr. Hanson, thank you for the email, I think it was in July, when Public Works admitted that they suspected that the pothole problems were because of sewage leaks. So I think we need to fix their infrastructure. And and you're taking it from the Department of Health, and we have a major health concern here, to stormwater quality enhancement, I think the stormwater, that you should already have funds in place for that.
And planning item 8 on the sign regulations in the Central Business District.
Okay, I wish there was better signage. You're increasing the signage for, you're amending and allowing, you have, you implemented the codes down at the oceanfront, and then you continually, Mr. Sessoms, are you reading, or are you listening, or does it matter?
I'm
Okay.
wide open.
You're wide open, you just aren't looking, thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes, but I won't say it in council, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down. Our next speaker will be George Benz. Mr. Benz? How are you tonight, sir?
Moving a little slow.
Oh, goodness, sorry to hear that.
I'm E. George, man, speaking on behalf of the SeaTac Community Civic League relative to J2, the legislative package that we were here on October 4th.
Correct.
On one hand, we thank council very much for moving forward on this. The Ministers Forum is a little bit disturbed at the fact that this is moving tonight when they were told, I think, November 18th for another meeting. And this is moving now, so it was kind of confusing there. Two things in here. This is beautiful that council is moving, but it doesn't appear to our community leadership, and surely not to SeaTac, that the city is really serious about this thing of prohibiting racial profiling. It is widespread, as I've explained before, that it is affecting everyone in every income level in the African-American community, including publicly elected officials. It was actually Mr. Davidson, I believe his name was, that was the pastor of Piney Grove, where he was stopped in his neighborhood while he was jogging and treated like a criminal. I believe the same happened to Pastor Poole in his Salem neighborhood because you're African American, where you're stopped and taken through the ritual as if you are a suspect of a crime. As I said before, the pastors have somewhat taken the lead of this thing, brought the community together at Big Piney Grove Church, and the church was about 60, 70% full. And they asked the question, how many of you have been stopped by the police not involving a traffic offense? Almost everybody in the room raised their hand, including myself. And the other side of it is, as you recall, Mayor Sessom, when we met together on, I believe it was the 8th at the Convention Center, Chief Severa admitted that there's no data collection on that aspect. But that has proven across America to be the most dangerous to African Americans, where you're stopped, you're questioned, when did you get your car, where are you going, where do you live? I was stopped in my yard, and I was questioned as to why am I stopping in this yard and not the yard next door, although my family owned both lots. Those kind of intimidating and harassment questions. And I want to get it over with, so I told the police officer to write the ticket. He contended that he could have wrote up a whole lot of tickets on me just because he didn't like my statement, write the ticket. And if any counsel doubted there is a court transcript on it, of course the court threw it out. But the fact that we get taken through this over and over and over and over, it is widespread. Placing this in the legislative agenda is nice as a statement. But I believe the city attorney would agree that even though it is said don't do it in the Human Rights Act, there's no actionable cause. You have no right of action because it's in there. To really give African American community protection against racial profiling, the city would need to do an ordinance that makes it unlawful and punishable because it's happening. And A couple of statements in here, I question the correctness of them. One here says City Council received public comments during September the 20th. I would beg to differ because we brought the issue up on October the 4th. The other statement in here, which I believe is incorrect on its face, the City of Virginia Beach has prohibited the aforementioned since 1994. Well, if the city is prohibiting it and the courts, you got it written in here that the courts have already ruled it's unlawful. As a matter of fact, one of the most recent cases involved a case from Virginia Beach that was overturned by the Supreme Court. But it's still happening. As I have stated several times, it happened August 5th. And it happened to a 40-year Virginia Beach City public school employee who is a security officer for the schools. 35-year football track coach. And the only thing wrong was he was an African-American driving a brand new car. The first thing the officer asked him, when did you get this car? Officers are not supposed to be stopping people just because want to know why the person driving a new car. That's not a crime. As Dr. Allen said before, being black is not a crime. So we have a situation where a class of people are being subjected to questionable, the city acknowledges in here, is unconstitutional. The courts have ruled it unconstitutional. But so the position of the African-American community and CTAC is, when is the city going to take this serious and put an ordinance on the book that specifically makes racial profiling an offense that is punishable? Because otherwise, the police department already admitted, they don't keep no records, so you don't know how much is happening, other than when you get a group of people in a room and ask them. But it's happening to all of us. Community leaders like myself, to our pastors, to African Americans who are public elected officials. This is a serious problem, and it needs to be addressed in a serious manner. Because, I'm gonna say this here, when you stop someone and that person know they have not violated any law, that is a tense situation. And when they stop Mr. Benjamin, if that had been a young person in that car who know they didn't do anything, it's going to be an aggressive situation. And the officer, here we see African Americans being killed when they're holding their hands up, when they do everything they're told to do. So why should Virginia Beach, if it's the greatest city in the world, why should it wait until it happens? Again, because it's done already happened before. But why should it wait? If the city is serious about being fair to everybody. So we don't want Virginia Beach to become a Ferguson. We don't want to see that here. And we've asked and asked, what more can we do as citizens? The problem is affecting one class of citizen in this city, African Americans. So just saying we're against it, but not putting any mechanism in place to make it punishable is not doing anything to stop it.
Thank you, sir, for coming down.
Your Honor, Mr. Andrew Jackson also just signed up. He'd like to speak on this.
All right, Mr. Jackson. How are you today, sir? Welcome.
I keep waking up in the morning, so I'm good.
That's good for both of us.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, City Manager. I am speaking on behalf of the Leadership Forum, and I'm going to kind of follow up on Mr. Menz. Most of you know me, and a lot of people in the city know. So when I got stopped, as soon as the officer walked up, he knew me. That ended it. But I got stopped. My concern is because one of the great negative things that happens to a person that becomes aware, he sees everything. It's difficult for me. I spent 5 years doing some 63-day race relations seminars on an executive level, CEOs, 3-star admirals, up and down the East Coast, in Europe, across the country. I see things that most people don't see, and I have to absorb those. I see the wrong every day, every moment. While Mr. Mims was speaking, one thing I did was scan the room. This is not a joke, so I'm not sure why people smile. Those are things that I look at. Those are things that tell me that not only do you not really understand, you have not absorbed the gravity of this situation. It takes one argument on a stop to cause a conflict and a life. Just one. Any life that's lost. So wait. We have issues here in Virginia Beach that you don't see probably. I see them every day. Every single day. Every minute of the day that I walk these streets, I see them. One of the good things is to have grown up like I grew up. There's certain mechanisms within. When I walk the neighborhoods that some of you wouldn't dare go in at night, those mechanisms have to work. I have to see and understand whether that's a condition, a situation, to back off, to go forward, but to do that all day long. Now, I'm not the oldest one here, I don't think, but we're close. We're close. But I would say to you that the gravity of the situation is one incident away. We don't need that in this city. We don't need that. And I'm saying to you, as a race relations education specialist with a ton of experience, as a person that's visited all over the world, and I can't even count the cultures that I've lived in and worked in. I'm telling you, we are on the edge. And like some folks in here, I got 78 years of living to see it all.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Appreciate it. All right, council, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. And ladies and gentlemen, we are pulling item K1, just for your information, the planning item, Alexis Development. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval under the consent agenda, first under ordinances and resolutions, item J1, which is an ordinance to amend the city's fiscal year 2016-17 appropriation ordinance and operating budget to provide state-supported constitutional officers and their employees a 1% merit pay increase despite the lack of funding by the state, and affirm the original allocation of funds to the schools. J2, resolution to confirm adding the requested human rights and racial profiling item to the 2017 legislative agenda. 3, ordinance to grant a non-exclusive franchise to install, maintain, operate telecommunications in the city's public streets and rights-of-way to Metro Fiber Networks, Inc.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mims wanted to speak on 4A. I don't know if you want to hear that first or not.
Mr. Menzies, are you planning on speaking on 4A?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, we'll pull that one for the time being. We'll pull 4 for the time being.
Okay, then I had 2 other speakers on the VDOT item.
On what?
VDOT,
Before we vote, I'm going to get the public here, and those who are in favor, I will call them in just a moment.
okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear which one you said.
The mayor's taking care of it. He said they're in favor. He's calling later.
Okay. All right. Item 5, resolution to establish Miracle Medical Transport and authorize an annual EMS permit rate private ambulance services. Item 6, resolution to request that the Virginia Environmental Quality require Omega Protein, Inc. to test discharge slurry to protect public health. Item 7, ordinance to authorize the Virginia Aquarium and Marine Science Center Foundation, Inc. to grant naming rights to the Marine Animal Conservation Center as the Darden Marine Animal Conservation Center. Item 8, ordinance to authorize a temporary encroachment to Marshall H. Groom, Jr. and Jennifer Reagan Hoover into a portion of city property known as Black Duck Inlet for a bulkhead at the rear of 305 Back Bay Crescent in the Princess Anne District. The clerk would please note that Mayor Sessoms is abstaining on that item. Item 9 is ordinances to transfer $10,000 from the general fund to the Council of Civic Organizations Annual Neighborhood Conference. B, accept, appropriate from the Virginia Department of Health Office of Emergency Medical Services for life to the fiscal year 2017 operating budget of emergency medical services, rate the purchase of rescue equipment and medical supplies, $20,042 returned to localities program and $17,597 to the training program. And item C, accept, appropriate a Clean Vessel Act grant of $40,000 from Virginia Department of Health to stormwater quality enhancements. Item 10, which is one of the add-ons, is an ordinance to transfer $1,100,000 and to appropriate $7,695,750 from fund balance for expenditures related to Hurricane Matthew. Item 11, which is an ordinance to authorize the city manager to donate excess personal property and up to $300,000 for emergency relief to residents. And item 12, which is an ordinance to add Section 8-38 of the City Code, Building and Building Regulations, by allowing the waiver of permit fees for certain emergencies.
Open a public hearing for planning.
Under planning for consent, item 2, K2, is the application of Brian Harrington Sr., Joseph Harrington Jr., Kirk Harrison Sr., Barbara Kaysen, Loretta Harrington, and Avis Blue in the Princess Anne District. Item 3, application of Zobster Automotive LLC, Beach Holdings LLC in the Kempsville District. 4, the application of Joint Enterprises, Inc., trading as Pembroke Auto Sales, HD Holdings LLC in the Lynn Haven District. Item 5, G's Properties LLC in the Bayside District. Item 6, the application of Tar Roof LLC, Burroughs Family Revocation Trust in the Princess Anne District as amended. And the clerk will please note that Mayor Sessoms is abstaining on that item. Item 7 is the application of Harris Teeter Properties in the Princess Anne District. Item 8, which is a city ordinance to amend sections 210.2, 2210, and 2211 of the city zoning ordinance pertaining to definitions of sign types, sign regulations, and sign design guidelines for the CBC Central Business Core District. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We were not going to call for the question yet, and I apologize. Barbara, did we miss something?
I just wanted to ask, I thought you were going to vote separately on the VBCCO since it was pulled instead of having it on consent agenda, so.
No, we let you speak before and kept it on
Okay,
consent.
so you're putting it back on consent agenda and it's not voted separately?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. On the public hearing, we had people to speak on Metro Fiber in favor. If they want to speak, could you call their names, please?
Metro Fiber, I didn't have anyone. They're on the,
Oh,
well, but she already spoke.
Okay,
I
the
have
set
two on the
aside,
VDOT item, Your Honor.
on the set aside,
Yes, sir.
okay, we'll call those
Catherine
speakers.
Sullivan,
We welcome you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Sullivan. I go to Kempsville High School, and I live in the Bellamy Woods neighborhood of Kempsville. Our neighborhood is at one end of the proposed Violet Banks Trail, close to where Providence Road takes the sharp turn near Princess Anne. My family, friends, and I need a way to be safely connected to the school, the library, and the new rec center. And as you know, it would be very unsafe to do that on Providence Road. So please support this funding application so the trail can finally be built and future families can have a safe path to use.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Lisa Cross,
We welcome you tonight.
Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Mr. City Manager for providing me this opportunity to speak. My name is Teresa Kraus, and I've lived in the Bellamy Woods neighborhood of Kempsville since 2002. In 1999, my husband Walter Camp and I chose to move to Virginia Beach from Ohio because of the quality of life this area offers to its residents. Many of you know Walter, who wanted to be here tonight, but he's a judge for 40 under 40, so he had to attend the event. I've personally been involved with the Bellamy Woods Civic League for over 10 years as an officer in other capacities. In addition to my personal views, I'm also representing the Bellamy Woods Civic League this evening with my comments. Our neighborhood is bordered by Providence Road, Princess Anne, and Farrell Parkway. Those roads are not what I'd call conducive to biking, nor, with the exception of Princess Anne, to walking. It's difficult and dangerous to leave our neighborhood unless one is driving. I'm here to ask the council to approve the funding application to improve the Violet Bank pathway. It is currently a narrow dirt path overgrown with roots and vegetation, but is the only alternative to walking or biking on Providence Road. This pathway runs parallel to Providence for 6/10 of a mile to Kittery Road. By improving this pathway to a proposed 10-foot wide paved multi-use path, our residents would be able to safely walk or bike to adjoining neighborhoods, schools, Kempsville Library, and the renovated Kempsville Recreation Center. This is especially important for young people who can't drive, but it would be used by residents of all ages. I'm one of them. Many of our original older residents are downsizing and leaving our neighborhood. More young families with children are moving in every day. Providing a safe way for them to get to local amenities is important. The Violet Bank Trail would start in our neighborhood and go through adjoining neighborhoods, including Old Bellamy Manor and all the way to Stratford Chase, thus directly serving over 1,200 homes, and that is just south of the Providence Road. The city's Bikeway and Trails Advisory Committee, BTAC, toured the Violet Bank path in 2015 and supports the creation of a safe path. At their meeting yesterday, they unanimously voted to recommend council's passing a funding application for the Violet Bank Trail. Our community has been actively advocating for this shared use path for more than 10 years. Our community worked to get the project into City Bikeway and Trails Plan. We've spoken with council members, Dr. Ross Hammond, and previously Mr. Dizell. We've gained support from adjoining civic leagues at Stratford Chase and Bellamy Manor's estate. Walter has attended BTAC meetings for years. We've hosted a public comment booth staffed by Bikeways planner Wayne Wilcox at our annual community event in 2014, and over 200 people from our community visited the booth that day. City staff from both Parks and Public Works have also sought public input several times over many years. And the best news of all is that the land for the Violet Bank Trail is already owned by the city. If you've ever driven on Providence Road, you know how dangerous it is. A narrow road, cars turning, a crazy 90-degree turn, deep ditches, and no sidewalks. We have patiently waited for years while other projects have been prioritized ahead of this one. As a safety measure alone, it is now time. For these reasons, our community respectfully asks the council to approve the funding application to build the Violet Bank Trail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming down. Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
That's it. Mr. Mims wanted to speak on the community transportation.
We welcome you back, sir.
Thank you. You're my slogan. All right, on this matter here, and the only reason I rise on this is based on this statement in the background. The program is intended to help local sponsors fund community-based projects that expand travel choices and enhance transportation experience by improving the culture, historical, and so forth. As far as what you have here, I have no objection to the programs and so forth that you have there, and I'm sure those communities need them, especially where the children can get to school more safely. And I agree, Providence Road is crazy, because I have some properties off of there that I work on. But my concern here is SeaTac, the last exit off the expressway before the ocean front. That's Stratford. That's a culture area, historical. We must thank Mr. Barry Frankenfield and the planning department for the signs that they put together for SeaTac. The issue is, when we saw the prototype we were inside the church. When we saw the sign sitting on location, it is small compared to when you come off that expressway into SeaTac. So on the culture, historical aspect, that is the highway that a lot of traffic use, we would ask, if not included in this, obviously, because you're getting ready to act on it, but if you would consider giving us a sign maybe about 3 times larger than the one that's there, so you could really see it, because the traffic is moving fast and the sign is so small, as far as that being one of the oldest, if not the oldest, American historical community there. So our concern is we missed out on this, didn't know this was coming through, so we would ask that if in the future you would consider giving us a little larger sign there and move the little one that's there over to one of the other streets, because we initially was 4 signs, it increased to 7, then it was reduced back to 4, and I agreed to a reduction because of budget. But if you have these kind of things here to enhance community projects that relates to culture, historical, all we're asking is a larger sign.
Thank you, sir. We have the consent agenda. We have a motion and a second. I'll call for the question, please.
By a vote of 10 to 0, with the exception of the mayor's abstention, you have approved the consent agenda as presented.
We now go to Alexis Development, LLC, William K. and Ann Wright. Would you call the speakers, please?
Yes, sir. John Richards.
John, we welcome you tonight.
Thank you, sir. How are you, Mayor?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Good evening. My name is John Richardson. I'm a local attorney. I represent the applicant in this matter. This is a 2-lot subdivision, if you will, at the north end of Virginia Beach. There are side-by-side 50 by 150 lots. Under the current zoning ordinance that Mr. Frank, if you will correct me if I'm wrong, but we can build 2 large box duplexes with 7,000 square feet in each duplex, so 3,500 square feet per unit. What we are doing to meet the objective of the overlay district is to build 4 3,000 square foot cottages, so you'll have 12,000 square feet, 2,000 less square feet than we're entitled to build on this site. It comes to you recommended by planning. We met with the North Beach Civic League. It is recommended by the North Beach Civic League. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Will we hear the opposition?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Jane Arrington. The next speaker will be Joyce Walsh.
We welcome you tonight.
I'm Jane Arrington. I live at 208 76th Street. I've lived there since 1979 and seen many little cottages disappear from that street as well as the entire north end. I'm reading a letter that my husband wrote. I have no objections to the development of a duplex or 2 single-family homes on the property that is now 221 76th Street. I do object to any proposed quadruplex or 4 single-family homes on the property due to the fact that 4 homes could not adhere to the required setbacks. There's an existing wall on the east side of that property now that is encroaching on the adjacent property at, I think it's 217 76th Street. We have been informed that all existing North End Virginia Beach lots would be zoned only for single-family homes or duplexes to limit the population density. Many on our block are concerned about the additional runoff to our storm drains that 4 houses would produce. It should be noted that any plans for the development of this property had never been shared with the residents of the street. This is the first time that we're seeing it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for coming down.
May I
Next
have your
speaker,
letter?
please.
May I have the letter for your record? Sure.
We welcome you
Joyce-
tonight.
Joyce Walsh.
Good evening, Mayor Sessoms and distinguished council. My name is Joyce Walsh. I live at 218A 76th Street. I am here to speak against the variance before you at 221 76th Street. As I voiced at the August Planning Commission meeting, I have great concerns about the capacity of the storm drains, being able to support the increase of the stormwater runoff with this development proposed. The end of the block has significant flooding after a rain now. Additionally, and I would have voiced another concern at the September Planning Commission meeting had I not been under the impression that the item was to be deferred because of the elevation and plans had not been given to the commission until the day before the hearing. Regardless, the land side of 76th Street is approximately 528 feet from the feeder road to the state park. There are presently 29 households on this short block. Don't let 4 additional households add to the density of this quaint north end street. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Ed Boxam.
We welcome you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Good evening again. My name is Ed Buxbaum, and together with my wife, Jackie Diamondstein, we have lived in our home for over 23 years. There is one tear-down lot, and I think this is very important that you all need to know. There is one tear-down lot between our property and 221 76th Street. This can easily be turned into a duplex in addition to what the 221 is proposing to do this evening. 6 additional homes at the end of our street the density is very, very uncomfortable. I was here when the original owners had just placed their house on the market. Like all homes, they eventually sell. Sometimes they sell quickly, others sit. The current owners did a wonderful job enhancing their property with a lot of additional foliage. This foliage has added and created a very nice privacy barrier from the end of our court, protecting their home. This foliage has added to the overall unique ambience that our street has, from the feeder road all the way down to the park. Landside 76th Street has canopy coverage from one side of the street to the other. We have one single paved street, and we all allow each other to pass. We have to pull over, let each other pass by. The only reason that we have this unique coverage on our street is because years ago, a group of neighbors said no to the proposed widening of our street and a few other streets down to the south. So literally, when you drive down our street from Atlantic Avenue, there is foliage coming over the street. It's wonderful. And in my opinion, it almost creates a premium just to live in these several blocks that are adjacent to each other. The current owners lived on our street for about 16 years. They once said they were not going to move until their home sold. They placed their home on the market, and yes, it has been a slow seller. They moved anyway and purchased another home. And I heard from a neighbor that they rejected a $1.4 million cash offer for this home, which is currently on the market, as far as I know, at 1.6. This past spring, we noticed a family coming and going from this house. They moved in and are still currently residing there. My wife and I were happy because we thought the house sold. We were happy for the current property owners.
I'm afraid you've run out of time, and I thank you for your comments. Thank you for coming down tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other speakers?
Barbara Messner.
Good evening. I oppose all of the uncontrolled growth, the oversized homes, and one reason that hasn't been brought up is the lack of parking. The city advertises all of their parks in the north end for the people that don't want the crowds and the entertainment, and yet there is no parking at the north end. Every time these homes are approved, they're allowed to have between 8 and 10 homes, 8 and 10 parking spaces in front of their house. It's all cement. Each new project takes away parking for the public. There's no parking. You want to have year-round parking for an arena project and charge people year-round for parking? Access to the oceanfront should be a right, public roads and public access. Thank you. And I
Thank you.
oppose.
Thank you.
That's
Any
all,
other
Your Honor.
speakers?
That's all.
Mr. Wood?
Mr.
Mr. Richardson?
Come back up.
Like to respond to the comments, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I would just simply point out that we can build 14,000 square feet of conditioned living space on these two lots. We're actually decreasing density. We're decreasing it to 12,000 square feet, and we're meeting what the North End Civic League wishes to achieve, which is to avoid the large big box duplexes that have sprung up throughout the North End. This is going to be a very, very attractive cottage-style development, so we think.
And the Civic League has a review process. Did they approve it?
Yes, sir. We met with the Civic League, and they approved it.
Barry, is that, by right, they could do two duplexes?
That's correct. Yeah, there's two existing lots that were platted years ago that they could build two duplexes.
And I made a statement, Mayor. I said 50 by 150, which is a standard North End lot. These lots are actually 50 by 200, so they're 10,000 square feet, so they're a little bit bigger lots than normal.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Mayor, that was the comment I want to make. I'm good, John,
Thank you.
thanks. That was the comment I wanted to make, and I recognize the folks' comments about the development, but by right, you know, that you can do two duplexes on this property. And frankly, having worked with the North End on the duplex issue, the folks are looking for more like this and less of the giant walls of duplexes that you see, frankly, throughout there. And I believe Ms. Arrington and someone else talked about stormwater issues. You know, because this is considered a multi-development, you know, DSC is going to certainly require that the developer do an awful lot of stormwater work, frankly, a lot more stormwater work than they would do if it was a single-family residence. So that gives me, I think that's something good. So for those reasons, Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call for the question, please. And council, I've got to go, well, go ahead.
I vote 10-0. You have approved the item of action.
Council, I need to get back to ordinances. We did pull one, if you recall, item number 4, to support the city's application of VDOT for Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program, Revenue Sharing Program, and Smart Scale. Do we have speakers?
They've already spoken,
They already
Your Honor.
spoke.
Okay, do I
Move for
have
approval?
Second.
permission for, any discussion? Call for the question, please.
I vote of 10-0. You have approved the item with ABC.
Is there any unfinished business? Is there any new business? We'll adjourn. Thank you very much.